morning children. Yesterday we started about life processes. In that we have completed with reference to autotrophic nutrition. Just to recall, let me define what is autotrophic nutrition. In autotrophic nutrition, you have learned that the organisms, they are capable of manufacturing their own food by taking the raw materials like carbon dioxide, water in the presence of sunlight, which provide energy. That energy is absorbed by the chlorophyll, and then the byproducts we get here is about glucose, then oxygen and water. So autotrophic nutrition, it is only the characteristic feature of some plants and one special kind of bacteria. Now let us know about another type of nutrition. It is called heterotrophic nutrition. The term heterotrophic nutrition refers to those organisms which obtain their food either directly or indirectly by depending upon the autotrophs. Now, for example, you know there are different kinds of heterotrophic organisms like fungi, then some animals, especially animals and fungi. They are called heterotrophic. Heterotrophs are the organisms which depend on autotrophs either directly or indirectly. So there are different methods how these heterotrophs secure their food. For example, you have heard as herbivores. Herbivores means these are the organisms which depend on plant food. So herbivores, when they have to get their food, they have to depend on plants, or if it is a grass eating animal, say for example deer, the deer has to go to the grass to eat it. Then other heterotrophic organisms means, for example, if we take about a fungi like mushroom, these mushrooms, they have to depend on dead decaying matter for their food. They have got the capacity to break down the organic matter and use that as their food. So heterotrophic organisms, they have different means to obtain their food. Because they have one more special heterotroph is insectivorous plant. You must have heard as insectivorous plants. These insectivorous plants, they have to depend on some insects in order to get their proteins, nitrogenous substance we say, no? So for that, they have got the capacity to catch the insect and digest that. It is also one type of heterotrophic nutrition. So let me begin how this heterotrophic nutrition takes place. First, in some unicellular organisms like amoeba. In case of amoeba, you have learned that the amoeba, the surface of the amoeba, it forms some special projections. These projections, it is called pseudopodia. Now let us know how amoeba will engulf the food particle. Whenever amoeba come across with any food particle, the pseudopodia will engulf the food particle, and directly the food particle is taken into the cell. Then there are some digestive enzymes here, and these digestive enzymes help in digestion of the food material, and that is how amoeba is going to use that food material, digested food, for its various activities. So now, like this is about amoeba, and there is another unicellular organism called paramecium. This paramecium all around the body, for example, I just show, it is a slipper shaped animal we say, and all over the body it has structures. These structures are called cilia. Now, this cilia helps the food particle to come near one particular spot. In that spot only, the food particle will be there. That food particle will be ingested in, and that is how paramecium can have its nutrition. So now, let us discuss about how nutrition takes place in human beings. Now let us know about digestion process in human being. Before I introduce the parts and function of the digestive system, let us know what is digestion. Digestion is a process during which complex food substances are broken down into simpler substances with the help of biological enzymes. Then these simple substances can be utilized by the digested food material will be taken to each and every cell and tissue of the body, where we say it has got the process of assimilation. Assimilation means the digested food will be sent to each and every part so that we can use for our various life activities. Now let me start how the digestion process actually happens in human being. Whenever we take the food, the first part of the digestive system, we say it is mouth. So, in the mouth, the moment we take the food, already the digestion starts. We first chew the food very well, and that food will be mixed with the help of the tongue, and you will also observe in the mouth there is some watery fluid like substance. This watery fluid like substance is called salivary juice. The salivary juice is going to act upon only the carbohydrate part of the food. Supposing you have eaten rice, or you have eaten items prepared out of ragi flour, or you have eaten any cereal, means we say it has carbohydrate. So only the carbohydrate part is acted upon by the enzyme that is present in the salivary juice. The enzyme present in the salivary juice is called amylase. So amylase, it is a starch digesting enzyme. So when the food is taken in, if there is carbohydrate part of it, the digestion starts, and then the enzyme amylase will act upon it, and to some extent the food substance is broken down into simpler substance. Then the food moves into another portion called pharynx. Now pharynx means it is a common passage where the respiratory tract and the digestive tract, both of them will pass. Actually the respiratory tract will be in the front and digestive tract will be at the back. So one more important thing we have to remember here is, after you take the food in the mouth, it has to be swallowed. Then there is one beautiful arrangement here. Little above the larynx there is one connective tissue called epiglottis. This epiglottis has to work very quickly. It will close that windpipe and open only the food pipe. So the food enters from the pharynx to another tube-like structure called esophagus. It is called food pipe. So food enters from pharynx to esophagus. The esophagus is also called food pipe. In the esophagus, we say there is no digestion is taking place. Here it is only, there will be the muscles across the wall. tract, and this muscle should contract and relax. See, throughout the part of the digestive system, there is one special kind of movement. It is called peristalsis. So how this peristalsis movement occurs means, whenever we swallow the food, the moment it comes to the esophagus, the muscles that are present alongside of this digestive tract, it is also called alimentary canal, and the digestive tract muscles, it starts contracting rhythmically. So the rhythmic movement is only called peristaltic movement. If peristaltic movement was not there, means the food will stuck up there only. It cannot come to the next part. So from the esophagus, the food will travel all along, and then it will reach a bag-like structure. This bag-like structure, it is a muscular bag. It is called stomach. So the food has travelled from the esophagus to the stomach now. Now let us see what happens in the stomach. The wall of the stomach is responsible for preparation of one digestive juice. It is called gastric juice. The gastric juice also has one chemical acid called hydrochloric acid. Then the gastric juice contains an enzyme called pepsin. Now let us see what happens to the food that has come to the stomach. So when the food comes to the stomach, the gastric juice will have already been prepared. Then hydrochloric acid is also there. That hydrochloric acid is going to give the acidic medium for the food, and then it will also, another important use of hydrochloric acid is, by chance some microorganism has entered along with the food, the acid is going to kill that, and then the pepsin part of the enzyme, it is going to act only upon the protein. So protein food, suppose you have eaten dal or pea, some dish made out of pea or any protein substance means, now that pepsin has to act upon this protein part of the food, and it will break that protein part into still simpler substance. Then it will remain, actually this full process of breaking down the proteins, and then all these actions takes place. We say food will remain in the stomach for nearly 3 to 4 hours. Then after the food is partly digested here, then there is one valve at the end of the stomach. It is called pyloric valve. This valve will open, so the food will enter the small intestine. When the food comes to the small intestine, here major portion of the digestion has to take place. Now there are these associated glands here which is going to help for digestion. Liver, then pancreas. So liver and pancreas, they are also going to pour their digestive juice into the small intestine. So in the small intestine, now small intestine is also going to produce some intestinal juice. Then the liver is going to, the liver will have sent its whatever juice that is produced is called bile juice. That bile juice will also come through its duct to the small intestine. Then pancreas will secrete pancreatic juice. That pancreatic juice will also come to small intestine. Then the pancreatic juice has enzyme called lipase, and pancreatic juice has called the enzyme called lipase and trypsin. The trypsin part of it is going to digest the protein, and then the lipase part is going to act upon the fatty substances. So the bile juice does not contain any enzyme. But what is the advantage of bile juice means the bile juice is going to break down the fatty molecules. Now we say as emulsification of fat. Emulsification of fat means, I will give you one example. See, when you take a cloth which is very dirty, you are going to use the detergent to wash the dirt. So the detergent is used to wash the dirt away from the cloth. So like that, this fat is very difficult for digestion purpose. So what this bile juice is going to do means the bile juice is going to break down that fat globules. So now the lipase is also going to act upon the fatty molecules. So now almost carbohydrates, then proteins and then fat, all the three complex substances are converted into their simpler form. We say carbohydrate gets converted into glucose, then proteins get converted into amino acids, and then fat substance gets converted into fatty acid and glycerol. So now the full food has been digested. Now let us see how this digested food is supplied to different parts of the body. In the small intestine, the special feature of the small intestine is it is thrown into finger-like projections. Actually, small intestine is a long coiled tube. Inside, inner wall of the small intestine is thrown into finger-like structure. It is called villi. Singular is villus. So this villi is highly supplied with the blood capillaries. The blood capillaries, they will absorb the digested food, and then this digested food along with the blood is transported to different parts of the body. Then the undigested matter, what is left as undigested matter, it has to come to the large intestine. It will come to the large intestine. Here, in the large intestine, the main function of large intestine is to reabsorb the water and some salts. Now, only after the absorption of water and some important salts, now the undigested matter will be sent to a portion called rectum. Then, in the rectum, the undigested food will be remaining, or it will be collected there. Then last part of the intestine, last part of the alimentary canal is called anus. Now anus is an opening. So, and here there is one special kind of muscle called sphincter muscle. This muscle, whenever it opens, then the undigested matter, which we call as feces or fecal matter, that is thrown out of the body. So, in this way, complete digestion takes place in human beings. Now, before I conclude the topic, I want you to understand there are two digestive disorders: constipation and diarrhea. Constipation and diarrhea. I think some of you might have heard about this constipation. Then let me make you understand what is constipation. Constipation refers to the inability to send out the fecal matter. Some persons will be complaining, oh, for 2 days also I finish up fast. Now constipation is the inability to send out the fecal matter. So if the fecal matter remains in our body, it will cause some disorders, or it is not a healthy sign. That is why they say we are advised to take food with roughage. Food with roughage means that when you eat substances like greens or the known coal and all, then fibrous material is supplied. So that roughage is going to push this fecal matter out. Roughage has not got any other special function other than making the fecal matter, undigested matter to move on. So constipation is not a good side. We have to avoid the constipation. Then diarrhea means in the large intestine, when sometimes it happens before the large intestine absorbs the water portion, without absorption of water portion only, the fecal matter is sent to the rectum. So sometimes diarrhea means loose motions. So when this happens, we say diarrhea is caused. So constipation and diarrhea, they are the two digestive disorders. Thank you.